What role does the CEB play in the design of smart cities in Mauritius?
The design of smart cities requires a lot of planning. First of all, smart cities are supposed to have integrated resorts. They have commercial facilities, and they also have other activities which they call smart activities. So, in the design of the smart cities, since it's a cluster and a closed development, we have to integrate our network development inside their design systems. So this is not like the conventional planning that we do normally. So in this respect, we are working closely with the designers and the promoters of smart cities so that at the outset, we already implement all the design features so that we can allow a better supply to the smart cities. And on top of that, we are also adding what we call remote control systems through like intelligent systems to be able to monitor the consumption of the electricity within the smart cities. So this is a concept which is newly developed between CEB and the promoters.
What are the recent initiatives taken by the CEB towards a greener energy production?
Now, greener energy production is something which has been on the agenda since quite some time. I mean, it started right from the climate change issue where we start seeing rise in temperature. So green energy production means electricity coming from sources where we do not emit carbon dioxide emissions. The initiatives has started quite some time back, and it concerns mainly solar and wind projects that we have today. We also have other technologies which we are looking at. And these initiatives, we have to encourage new investors to come in here since it demands new technology and it demands also financing. So CEB has launched numerous tenders for such projects to be implemented in the country, and we are quite on the right track to increase the penetration of these systems within the CEB production mix today.
Only a low share of power generated come from solar and wind. Why?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, why only a low share? Now, CEB, we have been focusing mainly on wind and solar today, which we call are the two major mature technologies that we have right now. And knowing that solar PV requires large surface areas so that we can collect the sunlight to produce electricity. Now, this demands a lot of surface area of land. Knowing that Mauritius is quite small in size, land has a higher value for other purposes. So it has made a kind of a financial barrier for investors to invest in acquisition of land to produce electricity. But now, with more and more marginal lands being available, we are now going to push forward with more and more solar power. And solar power, we have to say that it is available only during the day. That is almost about 8 hours of sunlight that we have. And also for wind, we have the same issue. The wind blows for quite some time. It's not 24 hours a day. So the challenges makes it that the penetration of wind and solar are relatively lower than the other sources. This is a challenge which is of technical nature.
What is the CEB doing to leverage on new technologies to smarten up production?
New technology to smarten production is a good question. We have been facing these challenges since the early days. We tried to integrate solar and PV in the system. As an example, I will let you know that solar, it can be bright now, it can be dim just after, or it can be dark sooner. So the issue is about stabilizing the electricity network, because I can't ask anybody to just wait for the sun to come to give electricity. So we have to integrate the solar fluctuations as well as the wind fluctuations within the energy network, so that at the end, the customer sees only a stable supply. So to do this, the challenges has been quite, extending for us, because we have had to have recourse to new technologies like battery energy storage system to be connected to the network, so that when there is no sun and no wind, this battery compensates for this supply and gives a stable supply to the economy, because the economy, the industry has to continue to work. Whether there is sun or not, we have to keep it running. So these challenges have been on the agenda since quite some time for the CEB, And I can say that by today, we have already mastered these challenges and we are now on the way to be able to live with it for the next coming decades.
Given the high growth demand, what is the status of the combined cycle gas turbine using LNG?
Yeah, it's an interesting question in relation to the national mix. Now, the national mix of energy, in a kind of a nutshell, today we have about 40% of energy from the coal production, 40% from fuel oil, and we have about 10 to 12% today from bagasse biomass, about 4% from hydropower. We have roughly, and the remaining, which is about 2 3%, is only from renewable sources. Now, the challenge at the global level today, we know, is about climate change. Now, when we come to climate change, we all talk about carbon emission, carbon and CO2 emission. Now, to reduce the amount of CO2 emission that we are doing today, we can rely on, for example, let us wait for renewable energy to take up the whole share of the energy production. But with the pace of energy integration in the network today from solar and wind, and the challenges that we have in terms of surface area and the wind availability, it is not something that we can achieve in the near years coming ahead. So we have to find alternative means to reduce the carbon emission. So the solution is, the most obvious one today is the availability of liquid natural gas, which is a gas, which is a cleaner gas. It is a fossil fuel, but it's a cleaner gas for energy production. That's why the CEB came up with the conception and the inception of this project of liquid natural gas from combined cycle gas turbine. For example, doing energy from liquid natural gas will immediately replace coal and fuel oil. And this, in turn, will reduce our emission immediately by 40% of the equivalent emission from carbon dioxide from coal and fuel oil. This is a step forward to immediately reduce CO2 emission and give more stability to the electricity production in the network. So this combined cycle gas turbine project is still on, and we are working on it so that we can clean the energy mix the sooner, and in parallel running with the renewable energy production from solar and wind later on.
What are Mauritius' chances of achieving the 25% target of renewable energy production by 2025?
The chances of achieving those targets actually are quite likely that we're going to achieve that by 2025. For example, we have implemented since 2015 quite a number of projects. We have at 2015 one PV solar farm operating. Now, by the end of this year, I can say that we'll be achieving around 11 PV farms operating. And these are all up and operational with solar power. Plus, we are having an 11 megawatt wind farm running today, and we are contemplating a 30 megawatt wind farm which is going to come. So this is, we are on the path of the projection we had before, and we're also pushing for more of biomass to be used in the sugar factories. As you know, we have bagasse being used in the sugar factories, and today we are implementing a project with the use of cane thrush, that is the leaves of the canes which were left in the cane fields before. So we are using that to boost up the production of energy from green biomass in the sugarcane factories. So this will help to achieve this target of 2025, and we are pushing forward, and we think that we are going to make it.
How long for Mauritius to reach 100%?
Yeah, 100% is what we say is a high target. You can say it's a dream, but we have to dream before we can achieve it. If we don't dream, nothing happens. So I think let us keep dreaming, but I think while dreaming, we can also work on the reality. The reality is about new technologies and new resource. Now, by technology, I mean we have solar, which is mature today, and the price of solar power is going down and down and down. So it's affordable to all people almost today. We are having also, we should not forget, Mauritius has about around, I think, 4 million square kilometers of sea. And we are now having the opportunity to work on new sources of energy from the sea. It can be floating wind farm, it can be wave power, And I think the limits are to be broken. And we still working on innovative technologies to bring into the systems so that we can achieve that dream of 100% today. I think that this is bound to happen to be 100% because fossil fuel is fossil. And one day, however technologically advanced we can be, if the fossil fuel disappears, there'll be no more fossil. And what do we do then? So we have to cope with this 100% renewable energy in the years to come. I can't say whether it's 25 years or 50 years or 100 years, but this is bound to happen and it will happen sometime.
What do you think is the best energy portfolio for a country like Mauritius?
We have to be careful when we say the energy portfolio and taking into account what I just said about the limits of fossil fuel reserve that we have in the oceans that are around us, on the earth, the planet. We have to ensure a balance between the fossil and the renewable. What is important is to be able to draw what we call our strategy. How do we move forward? Pushing more on renewable energy needs technology and resources. Resources is mainly finance. So we have to see how affordable our economy is to sustain large amount of renewable energy because it's costly. And we have to keep sustaining our economy. We can't just, let's say, pull out all coal and all diesel today because the economy has to live. We have to run the economy. So we have to keep gradually shifting from the fossil base to non-fossil base. And the balance is we have to push slowly to increase the share of renewable so that when time comes we can eradicate the fossil fuel. So the mix is, I don't think we can fix the mix as it is today, but we have to keep pushing on the renewable side, on the biomass side, so that we can sway out coal and fuel oil in the early years ahead of us.
Today, the CEB share of energy production is around 45%, with 55% from IPPs. What do you have to say about it, and how do you see the future?
Yeah, interestingly, this is a fact. We have CEB has only about 45%, 55% is from the IPPs. Now, historically, Mauritius has been a sugarcane-based economy, and sugarcane was grown only for sugar production. At a point in time, it was realized that bagasse has an energy value. So since the energy value had to be tapped off, so then CEB in the 1980s started a program, the Bagasse Energy Development Plan. And this gave the opportunities for the independent power producers, mainly sugar factories, to produce electricity from bagasse. Because you know the sugarcane crop is only for 6 months, and they had to invest in power stations to produce electricity. Then came the other 6 months, they had to use coal because you can't keep the investment idle. That is why you can see the share today of 55% coming from the IPPs. But within that 55%, we have to know that 40% is coal and 50% is bagasse. So all in all, what is happening today, since we have a tendency of the sugarcane cultivation is going down, bagasse is reducing. That's why we are complementing that with sugarcane leaves. But in the longer term, what will happen, maybe one day we'll having less and less bagasse, depending on the development on cultivation. And then what's going to happen mainly in the sector itself. Today, the CEB is the sole distributor of electricity, while the generation is coming from CEB and IPPs. And CEB is playing the role today of regulator in the sector. When I mean regulator, not yet today the Utility Regulatory Authority is not yet fully operational to regulate the sector. It has already been set up, it's already administratively in operation, but it's just waiting for proclamation of the Electricity Act of 2005 to be able to be operational. Now, what will happen then? When the regulator comes in place, then the CEB will be an actor at par with any other IPP in the country. CEB will be having to have its licenses, it will be having contracts for electricity supply and sales with what we call a system operator, which will be regulating the sector. And this will bring a lot more of competition in the power generation, and also giving opportunities for investors to come in producing and electricity from different sources which they think will be suitable for the country. So the regulator will be there to ensure that power is supplied to the country. At the same time, will enable the economy to benefit from the cheapest electricity production for the benefit of its customers. So this sector is called upon to have a big change in the years to come. And the CEB itself, as a utility, it may be called upon to change structure to fit in the new environment that we are going to live in. So I think this ratio of 45 to 55 will be called upon to changes, and a lot of change will happen in the near future with the coming into operation of the Egypt Regulatory Authority.